I bet it was scary at times, wasn't
Yeah, I would say it's not scary at all.
it?
But the reality is, man, is it's a hyper dangerous job. Like there aren't more people tend to get stuck in extremes. So there's a
Right,
line where you cross it and like you're in the more dangerous job situation. Being a
right.
nurse, dangerous, especially at a cache where like, one of the TTPs, one of the practices of the enemy is to hurt a bunch of people and then
Yeah,
mortar the cache, right? So that's super
yeah.
dangerous. My job's more dangerous than that job, right?
So, Pete Turner, you are a podcast host and you host the Break It Down show, and you're a former combat spy.
Yeah.
I'm very curious, what the hell is a combat spy?
Yeah, and honestly, it's a bit of my own invention because it's not a job that we understand even within the military. It's not something
Right.
that we train for. So these guys show up, and even when they show up, if they're not a combat spy, and it's possible to have my exact same job and you're just not a spy. So maybe you're a guy sitting in that job, but you're really an operations guy. Nothing wrong with operations. Like
Yeah.
it's critical, right? Or maybe you're an investigator, more of a cop, because in my field you can be a cop. We get bad.
Right.
We're federal agents, right? So a combat spy is my way of saying I am the guy who comes to a unit and I help them find out things they need to know so that they can win more and lose less. And I try to help them make the enemy lose more and win less, And so that's sort of my
Right.
job, but I do that primarily off the camp. I'm not living out there. I'm still living on the American camp, but I'm going from the American space to the native space, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, creating a network of people that help me to again help the commander win more, lose less, and the enemy lose more and win less. And if I'm really doing my job well, those four things are all in the same piece of information. So
Right.
we're just trying to do that. That is a very rare animal. They have lots of versions of them, and I don't primarily, this is my own design. I primarily don't focus on threat because I
Right.
believe that would if you show up in a village, if I show up in your town and I say, "Where are the bombs?" No one's going to tell me that, right?
Yeah.
And so a
Yeah.
lot of my peers are hyper focused on threat because they don't have the experience that I have, or they have a different mission that is all threat focused. And I would say there's a lot more going on.
So
And
you're
the way
more,
I
you were
yeah,
more like counter intel.
I am counterintel. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All
Okay.
the things I'm describing are all counterintel jobs, right?
Right.
And so sometimes you're actively trying to counter the. This is like where the terms matter, and in my world, we disagree on the terms quite a bit. And so, am I caught? Am I a spy hunter? Am I counter surveillance? Am I counter surveillance? Am I counter surveillance? Am I a lie
Yeah.
detector guy? Am I placing bugs? Am I looking for bugs that have been in place? All these things are in the realm of counterintelligence.
Wow, that's man, that sounds very, very interesting. I bet it was I bet it was scary at times, wasn't
Yeah, I would say it's not scary at all.
it?
But the reality is, man, is it's a hyper dangerous job. Like there aren't more people tend to get stuck in extremes. So there's a
Right,
line where you cross it and like you're in the more dangerous job situation. Being a
right.
nurse, dangerous, especially at a cache where like, one of the TTPs, one of the practices of the enemy is to hurt a bunch of people and then
Yeah,
mortar the cache, right? So that's super
yeah,
dangerous. My job's more dangerous than that job, right? So
right.
that's like the peak of like, wow, you really could be in a lot of danger, but for the most part, you work in a hospital. And even if it's in a tent, there's a lot, it's more like I'm gonna be unfair here. It's more like General Hospital, where there's like doctors and like younger, soldiers, and there's maybe some,
Right.
okay, so that's not my world. My world is off the camp every day, talking to sheikhs, I'm trying to meet the worst possible people and make them my friends. And sometimes those people are Americans.
Wow, that's wow. I, you know what? I appreciate that because right now and without getting too political on things, right now
Yeah.
here in the United States, socially, we've got a shit ton of problems, man. And right now, domestic terrorism is on the rise, and it's scary as hell here on the home front. And it's nice to actually have it's nice to know that we have guys like you looking out for us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I,
I certainly appreciate that, man.
Let me give you a little bit of what, and this is what Pete thinks, right? But in my field, one of our faults is that we always look for threat. When I don't see it, when I don't can't, it's out there, it's insidious, and I can't see it, so I have to look harder, right? We don't have like this mechanism, and probably shouldn't have a mechanism that goes, "Hey, calm down, calm
Yeah.
down." So, is there domestic terrorism? Yes, all the time. How big of a threat is it? Well, on that day, when they pull off the most dangerous place on earth, right? If
All
you're
right.
if you're the one who's in the traffic circle and the bomb goes off, it was horrible, right?
Right.
But the reality is a lot of that gets overplayed in terms of what happens. This is the thing where like, big numbers, no big deal. Hey, no big deal. Pete says it's
Yeah.
fine. And then small numbers, tragedy. It's awful.
Right.
And so, yeah, how do you adjust how aggressive guys like me are, right? And a lot of us put on a cape, and we are trying to be Superman every day. And there is a good side and a bad side to that. And that's why I'm not trying to act like I walk that line better than anybody else, but this is one of our challenges. And when we get fed by media and they give us things that are a little less true than they need to be, then we do get problems. Am I saying that domestic
Right.
terrorism is not a problem? No. Are there crazy people out there that will be inspired by some of the stuff we see in the news? Yes. What do we do about that? Pete doesn't know. That's not what I do. I just
Right.
try to find people, talk to the and again, I'm not active anymore, so that's also
Right. Right.
another problem. But counterintelligence and psychological operations go together really well. They have a lot of crossover. And so when you learn that trade in conjunction with my trade, you start to realize there's a lot of BS out there designed to stoke that fear. And so I'm
Yes.
less focused
Yes.
on fear and more on life.
Right. Right. And that I mean that reminds me like the national media is well, since the 24-hour news cycle started, the national news is all about fear mongering
Right.
and we now live in like the safest time ever, and
Right.
nobody
Right.
ever
Yeah.
reports on that. Nobody ever reports on, how much better this year is versus 1925, and
Right.
it,
Yes.
it, we like to highlight the bad things and the negative
Yes.
things, and I'm I'm oftentimes so pissed off when I watch the news. It just makes me want to just
Yeah.
shut it off all the time. I have
You
been
should.
watching like News Nation recently, and they're more
Yeah.
balanced,
Sure.
but their opinion shows don't try to force their
Mhm.
opinion on anybody. They, in my opinion, the opinion shows on News Nation kind of get you to think. They want you to think
Yeah.
about things in a different, instead of fighting each other, arguing with each other. Like, let's just ask questions. If we have questions, let's just ask them and
Sure.
see what we
Yeah.
come up with. But I think a lot of what we're dealing with now socially actually started back in the 1990s with ideological subversion from the Soviets. I think the Soviets have infiltrated our social system here, especially in like the academics. And it, it, it's kind of wild to see old videos back in like 1980s of old Soviet people talking about ideological subversion and how it works and stuff like that.
Sure.
And it's just like I see it all the time now. And once you
Yeah.
know about it, you can't unsee it. But I can't exactly point it out and be like, well, that's disinformation, that's misinformation, stuff like that,
Yeah.
because they're tuned out to those words now. And it's kind of wild to see. It's
Yeah.
kind of wild to see the uh, oh, how do I word this? It's interesting to see the growth of how quickly this stuff happens
Yeah.
over a couple of years in the very beginning, and then we ourselves we are accelerating it. The Soviets, obviously Soviet Union has collapsed. They don't have anything to do with it now, but
Right.
Russia and all those other countries they see this stuff going on, and we're doing it to ourselves now. They don't have to do
Yeah.
anything, and it's very, very wild to see.
Yeah. I would say opt out of all that. opt out of all that. Just don't participate in that. Quite often, I spend a lot of time learning about things. I'm not saying stay uninformed, but if you don't watch the news, and let's just call the news entertainment. If
Right,
you don't
right.
watch entertainment, you don't watch TV, you stay off your phone and you live your life, you'll find out that, hey, none of that stuff matters. Like you made a great
Yeah,
point. Like that's one of the safest times ever. When it's dangerous in the place that you're in, yes, that's terrible, right? And some cities, yeah, they're a little more unruly. And look, I'm from Oakland. I know Oakland well. Most of Oakland, totally fine. There are parts of
right,
Oakland, if you need help, it ain't coming. And
right,
so that's like any big city. And so don't go to those places where there ain't no help coming. Certainly don't park your car there. Don't leave
right,
your laptop in your car. But that I'm just talking about common sense stuff, like you
right.
don't leave
Well,
your laptop on the back seat of your car. Yes, you should presume that nobody is going to take it, but if
well,
someone threw
talking
a
about
rock through your
Oakland,
window and took it. Yeah.
I went to San Francisco a couple years ago, and
Yeah.
some of the people in my party were actually they had their rental car. They had their stuff in their rental car, and they went through a smash and grab. And
Yeah.
after talking to them, they were afraid to leave all their stuff in the hotel room, and they
Yeah.
thought that it might be safer in the car. And like I don't. I have never,
Yeah.
and I've never traveled all around the world or anything like that. I've just stayed here in the United States, but I am pretty well traveled here in the United States. And
Yeah.
I know you kind of got to blend in with the locals, I guess. And so I had a Kansas City Chiefs hat on because I'm from Kansas City, but I didn't wear the traditional red and gold. I wore just a
Right.
straight black, kind of like this is a Kansas
Yeah.
City Royals hat and it's not blue.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the
Right. Yeah.
same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thought there. I didn't wear
Yeah.
colors that might be offensive to certain people. And I didn't behave as a tourist when I'm out and about. I never left anything in
Yeah.
my vehicle. I was just vigilant. I wasn't hyper vigilant. I was just vigilant.
It's a good line.
And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And these family members in my party that went through the smash and grab, I kind of explained to them, I'm like, if you treat it like your home city, you're less likely to be robbed, and
Sure.
you're less likely to
Sure.
have something happen if you just walk around and behave like you belong there.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
won't uh people won't mess with you.
That's true. I've spent a good amount of time in Kansas City. I did a bunch of training out in Leavenworth, and I lived in a high rise right down there by the what is it, KC Live? What is that thing down there? Right there
Uh
by down
uh
there by
the
the
Light and
coffee
Power
plant.
District.
Yeah, 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 that's it.
Yeah,
I lived in
yeah.
a high rise right around there. And you're right, if you walked in the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time, yeah, you'd be like, "Oh boy."
Right.
But Kansas City is, and I mean this in the best way, it is a town. That's it. It's a
Yes.
town. It's got a
Yes.
lot of districts. It's wonderful. It's a sneaky great city. But if you go to the wrong place in town and make yourself a mark, you know.
Right.
That said, and this is important about like San Francisco, if you walk through the Mission at any time in the last 100 years, not now, it's always been a little freer there, a
Right.
little more rowdy. 100 years ago, San Francisco was a different place, man. It was,
Yeah.
this is we get wrapped up in our time, but I'm actually working on a movie project, and San Francisco was one of the main places, and it's about boxing.
Wow.
And there was all kinds of racism, all kinds of class, battles going on, and it was the fight city for a long time because
Right.
it was the place that like where modern boxing was sort of born. I'm not saying it's the original place, and obviously the Greeks had boxing. Let's calm down, everybody. But it had its time where it was the place you went to if you were from Australia and you wanted to break into big time pro fighting.
Right.
So that doesn't sound like San Francisco. Like, it's hard to even believe that's true. And then even today, like, yes, there are places in that town that I've walked through, and I'm like, this is god awful. And I don't know how you let somebody, you can't loiter, but this guy lives in front of your business. These things don't go together, and there is like a line where like that ain't good enough, right? But if you go to the Sunset, oh my God, it's like it's beautiful there, and there's a lot of money there, and so they don't tolerate a bunch of BS, and so the city behaves accordingly, right? And so when the city is as when its pendulum has swung too far, and San Francisco is a great example of this. I'll say about 12, 15 years ago, it was really far to the permissive side, right? And that's sort of San Francisco's job is to kind of be our free hippie, easy self, right? And so I'm on Market Street and driving up the hill on Market just gently rises up from the ocean. And so as we're going up, there's a guy gay. It's like a gay weekend kind of event. And he is barbecuing completely nude on Market Street. Got a hot dog on a stick, got a hot dog swinging, and has a Weber in front of him. And I'm like, see, that's too much because Market starts to connect to the real world. Like if you're up
Right.
there in the Castro and that kind of thing, hey, whatever. Like they're very permissive with that, and that's okay, right? Just don't go up there if you don't want to participate in that. But when it starts to leak down the hill, and it's not that far, it's a couple blocks,
Right. Right.
then it's too much. So what that does, and I'll shut up here in a second, that creates a specter of impropriety, of sexuality, of crime, right? And the specter is always bigger than the problem. That's just a good rule. I
Right.
learned this in combat. Like, oh, all of these people are afraid because people from Solder City are going to grab them and chop them up in their basement. Okay, that's not actually happening. Has that happened? Yes. Is Solder City dangerous? Kind of, right? Yes, it is. If you're the one they grab, oh my God, you prophesized your own demise and it was horrible. But for most everybody, day-to-day life, man, there's really not a problem. You can live your entire life in San Francisco and look, it's a big city. Might you get mugged? Sure. But that's a big city. That's Baltimore, that's Dallas, that's anywhere. You can get taken advantage of because that's how humanity works. But for the most part, the specter is always worse than the threat. But when we act so scared and we make these crazy decisions like this hotel can't safeguard our stay. Ask the hotel, can I put some things in your safe? They will always say yes. Because they want to do
Yeah.
a good job. You leave a couple of bucks for the maid on the table. All these things make it puts your green KC Royal hat on, and you don't put your I ate at LC's rib shirt, kind of thing on,
Right.
and so yeah, you do have to try to figure out how to blend in and calm the F down a little bit, right? Be
Right.
vigilant, not hyper vigilant. Allow people to be good people. Easier said than done, but this is the nature of these things. So like if I go to East St. Louis, or if I go to, well, really East Kansas City, it's a different place than up in the city of Fountains, which apparently doesn't look like East Kansas City. Like it's it's just a different place, right? And so I don't know what you do, but if we all spend a little less time being afraid and a little less time on our phone and I'm saying a little and a little less time watching the news, you're going to find out you're not going to miss it. You're just not. You're not going to miss being lied to. You're not going to miss these conversations where someone's like, apples have to be green. And you're like, well, I mean, there are yellow apples. And then you fight over like, I don't even care about apples. I just eat them. I don't get mad about, and I'm using apples as an analogy, but there's so many things where we get fired up about what the outcome is going to be that I'm a big believer in this because I've seen it and I see it here now. And I call it affect over effect. And affect is
Yeah.
when I do something and your emotional response, that's the affect that I'm looking for. And if I
Yeah.
can make you a little crazy, and in my world, I'm trying to push buttons, so I'm all about affect. How can I get you to trust me? Where's that trust button? Where's that affect that creates trust, right? Well, we live in an affect world. We think effect. And the best way I think to illustrate this is to say if I was going to woo a lady and I was writing her love letters and she was not being wooed, hey, I can't go, well, I've written 25 love letters because that turns me
Right.
into a stalker, right? But if I write the right love letter that elicits the right response, the right affect, and she starts to coo to my woo, well, that's good. And that's affect thinking. And so when the news is designed to fire you up and sell you a Cadillac, just don't go into that store. Just turn it off.
Right.
And if you find a news that makes you comfortable, you're probably getting played. And if
Right.
you,
And the same thing applies to consumerism as well, because
oh,
like
sure.
I have a
Yeah.
huge, so since turning 40, I well, it's actually started a few years before that, but since turning 40, I just kind of it was like a light switched. And I was like, oh, these people want me to buy something. And
Yeah.
advertising and stuff like that. It's all about manipulation. And
Yeah.
affect and effect is a very good way to explain, like, we don't have to have all the shit that we buy on a daily
Yeah.
basis. But we
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
manipulated into thinking that we have to have this stuff. And
Yeah. Yeah.
when I started changing that thought of, well, maybe I don't have to have all this stuff that these people are trying to sell me. When I
Right.
started, like I got, well, first of all, my budget started growing, because I wasn't spending so much money on consumer crap, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's such an excellent way to kind of describe affect and effect, the love letter thing. I
Yeah.
like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, in
And for
San
those who
Francisco,
are
go ahead.
I was saying, for those who are still stuck on it, like affect's a verb. It is. It's also a noun, and it's
Right,
hard to find because that language has changed a bit. And guess what, man? The affect effect thing. There's an affect I'm looking for in that. I'm looking for people to get off their center. I want them
right,
to pay attention and maybe disagree, and maybe the ones that are disagreeable aren't going to hear it. But that's the whole design of this thing, right? I am looking to try to create. I could find a better way to say that, but affect it's a psychological. It's a word that they use in psychology, and they talk about the impact of this emotion and impact response, right? And that's what an
right.
affect is. And so, yeah, it's just an interesting concept to play with. And when you think about that, and I'm just going to be really brief on this, when you look at psychological operations, when someone's running an information operation, they're going to do things like put adjectives in there. And so when you see words like the gruesome, the grisly, the whatever, and then it follows another word, you're you're walking up to the trough on purpose because now
Right.
like the shocking details. You know what? Pass, because
Yeah.
that's probably BS. It's
Yeah.
like this whole thing with, is President Trump dead or not? Or is he injured? You know what? Whoosh, pass.
And
Because I'm
that's
not
the
going to go to that
wildest thing
trough.
that that's the wildest thing I've seen in recent news about, like the current president. It's
Yeah,
but you know what though? I've seen lots of stuff about Xi Jinping possibly
sure.
dead or dying. I've seen lots of things
Yeah,
about Putin dead or
yeah,
dying. I've seen lots of things, lots of stories about world leaders, and it starts as like a rumor and stuff like that. And then when you when you look at those things, it's generally started by like in intelligence people and counterintel, and they want us to think like, just putting waves in the water, I think,
yeah,
and
yeah,
they're trying to they're trying to affect how we
yeah,
feel about certain things, and it's a lot of people use those two words interchangeably, but they do mean two
yeah,
different things, and
yeah,
it's like using those two words in a sentence. um it's difficult to do without,
yeah,
like, because most people don't understand that there's a difference.
yeah, yeah. The when you think about it, maybe you think about what is the desired effect by this headline, right?
Right.
And I'll give you an example from sports to
What
take it
is the
all the way out of
desired
politics.
effect, and what is the desired effect I'm looking for, and how do I affect that?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Either way, whatever that is. In baseball, we saw like so and so crossed up such and such a catcher on purpose.
Right.
Okay, I don't care. I love baseball. I love Look, I got an Angels hat on. I got an
Right.
A's hat right here. Right. I love
Yeah.
baseball. So,
So hey, there's
uh,
another tie to Kansas City, the Oakland A's. They used
yeah,
to be
yeah,
a Kansas
absolutely,
City
man.
team.
I dig KC. I used to patrol with the KC Royals hat on for a while.
Really?
It was a cool, yeah, blue and white front. Yeah, with
Yep.
the crown. Yeah, I used
Yep.
to patrol with that hat on. So the in baseball, like, we get really passionate about certain things, and so they consistently sell us Judge, they consistently sell us Otani, and those guys are great. There's no knock against those guys. We can celebrate those guys, but every day, every play. The other day, the Dodgers lost, and I'm a big Dodger fan. So the other day when the Dodgers lost to Pittsburgh, what's the story? Oh, Otani hit a 120-mile-an-hour ball, the hardest ball he's hit since he's been with the Dodgers. Okay, that's neat, but the Dodgers lost to a team they should be beating. They just, I think, got swept by them. So, uh, why aren't we talking about that? Why aren't we talking about what Mookie Betts has done to recover his season. Why aren't we talking about the Pirates who won the damn game? You know?
Yes.
And so we get all this stuff that gets fed. I don't care if a pitcher and a catcher crossed each other up. I don't care if Emmett Sheehan switched out the ball and why? Why? Ask him. Ask him.
Yeah.
Just ask him. He's like, oh, I made a mistake. I had no idea. Maybe he's lying. Maybe he's not. That's it. I don't care anymore because I got bigger things to worry about. Do you realize that Luis Ariz just hit his 1,000th career hit? Oh my God. By the age 28, there's not even 400 dudes that have ever done that in baseball.
Right.
All of baseball. In the 30,000, I'm rounding, 25,000 dudes who've played baseball, not even 400 of them have had 1,000 hits by age 28. And he
That's
lost
incredible.
100 games to COVID. And this is just not going to be a baseball show, but a third of the guys who do that go to the Hall of Fame. Is Luis
Right.
Ariz a Hall of Famer? I have no idea. He's 28. Let's let him play. Maybe he has to play till he's 36 before it becomes obvious that he is or isn't. But
Right.
we're not even bothering to talk about that because we're talking about Shohei Ohtani hitting a ball 120 miles an hour. There's no there's no value in that if you lose.
Right.
You lost.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So this
I've
is all
run
about that
across a
aspect. Right.
right. I've run across so many, like so many things in the media or in the newspaper or even, like little newsletters coming home from, school from the kids.
Yeah.
I've come across so many things that are, we talk about inclusion a lot,
Yeah.
in society, and they're so non-inclusive by talking about certain issues that don't need to be
Right.
beat to death, and not highlighting the successes of other things.
Right.
It's nutty, really. It's like, why do you want us to pay attention to this and not this over here? And
Hmm.
it just goes to the core of fear and stuff like that. They
Yeah.
just trying to sell stuff, and it's
Yeah.
or trying to sell clicks. That's a lot of the thing.
Oh
Just
boy.
click on
Yeah.
me, click me, click me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just switch gears a little bit. Tell me about your
Please.
podcast, man. I didn't realize that you had I didn't realize that you had a podcast when we agreed to do the show. And
Oh,
when I started doing a little bit of research, and I was like, hey, he's got a podcast. That's awesome.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I,
Well,
Podcasting is one of
surprise.
my favorite things.
Yeah, same, man. Same. It's changed my life. And here's the funny thing is like I'll be on X talking to people, and I'm on X as much as I'm like, get off this stuff and go out and live your life. I'm on X way too much. But
Yes, me too.
someone will take a poke at me and they're like, oh, this Mr. Podcaster. Like, if you only knew the things I've done, the places I've been, and the benefits this thing has given me, like it would be the worst insult ever. And I'm like, thank you for talking about my podcast. It's great.
Yes.
It's awesome. I can't
You
believe,
ever seen
man, I
that
can't believe
movie?
my good fortune.
You
Yeah.
ever seen that movie Monsters Inc.?
A
The
little
old
bit. I'm
Disney
not sure which
movie?
one that is. Is that the one with Sully? I like
Yes,
that Sully
yes,
character. Okay.
yes. I
Yeah.
actually, that's my son's name is Sully, but um, yeah. So that reminds me of that movie because Mike Wazowski, the big eyeball character, he's
Oh yeah. Okay.
featured in a magazine, but they covered up his face with the barcode,
Yeah.
and when when people are showing him the magazine cover, they expect him to be sad or because his face was covered up, and he says, I'm on the cover of a magazine. And that's how I feel too. And when people are
Yeah.
talking about it, like, oh my God, they're talking about my show, and
Yeah.
it's fast. It's awesome
Well,
when
and
it's
they
an
think
awesome
it's like some
feeling.
kind of insult, and it's like, hey,
Right.
I've taught my musicians that have been on my show have sold 1.7 billion records. Do you think I'm
Ooh.
excited about that? Hell yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I go to their houses because sometimes I just grab my stuff and I go to them. And so
Right.
the most recorded drummer in history, he's my friend. And if I get a hold of him and he has time and he doesn't have much time, but I interact with them. And there's no drummer that every drummer knows this guy. He's played on Michael Jackson songs, he's played on everything. And so that guy, I get to interact with that guy. You're gonna make fun of me for knowing that dude? come on,
Right.
and the most recorded bassist, the guy that all of the elite stars, they're going to go on the road. Hey, man, are you free? Nah, man, I'm not. And so, like, I've had these guys on my show, and they become familiar or friends even,
Right.
right? And that's amazing. I mean, I can't tell you if I walk to a store and I hear a song, I go, I had someone from that song on my show all the time,
Yes.
like
Yes.
nonstop. If I walk into a bookstore and I look around, had him, her, all over the place. And if you're going to tell me that you're going to mock that, that's you, man.
Right.
That's not me. That's
Right. And
because I'm having a great time.
it's just a conversation most of the time too. On my podcast, I don't like the hardcore structured shows myself.
Sure.
That's not what I listen to. I'm like more of a Joe Rogan,
Hmm.
Julian Dory. I listen to Julian Dory a lot. Actually, Julian Dory is my favorite podcaster.
Mm.
Sean Ryan. I'm sure you're familiar with Sean Ryan. The
Sure. Yeah.
way
Yeah. Yeah.
the way they set up their shows, and obviously they do research. They're not
Right.
just going into it willy nilly. They do their research and they have a general idea on what they want to talk about when they start the show. And then it becomes a conversation between two people that other folks can listen to, and maybe it it affects their life in a way that it certainly affects them emotionally and
Yeah.
affects change. And I think, when we're talking about like negative comments or, dislikes and stuff like that, like engagement, for me, engagement is engagement.
Yeah.
And it rather than bantering back and forth with these people, like it's, hey, thanks for listening to the show. This is just a small snippet of an entire conversation, but I appreciate you listening
Right.
to the show and I appreciate your feedback.
Yeah.
And I don't go into it with like a negative mindset of, oh,
Sure.
this person's getting at me and I've got to retaliate and stuff like that. Cause I mean, ultimately that's their goal. They want
Yeah.
to piss you
Yeah.
off. They want to negatively affect your mood.
Yeah.
And I don't subscribe to that. And you're talking about X, and I'm on X a lot too. I don't interact all that much. I just like, I call it people watching. So if you're going to the
Yeah.
mall and you're people watching, it's the same thing I
Yeah.
do on X. And it's a it's a very wild place, but then you start seeing a lot of things that makes you think like how many of these people are real, you know?
Mm. Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time on Threads yesterday, which Threads is like Facebook's version of Twitter. And I
Yeah.
spent a lot of time on Threads yesterday, and I was just going through post after post after post that seemed like they were bot posts. It was
Sure.
just
Sure.
farming engagement and stuff like that. And I was like,
Yeah.
I wonder how much of the internet is real, and it'll
Yeah.
send you down a whole rabbit hole on that.
I, it's well, just this 100% happened today, and I'll follow you on X. We can talk about that in a minute. But the Shohei Ohtani engaged with me today. He's like, "Ooh, you don't know who you're talking to, do you?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, Shohei Ohtani, 1253794."
Right.
And so look, it it changes my mood, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. You know what? You want to jump into my thing because there was an image and it was like a box of like 28 Otanis, like 7 by 7, something like that, right? Something you get the idea. A whole bunch of Otanis, and it's like this is the leader since he joined the Dodgers. This is the leader with the hardest hits. Per thing, and it's by this great channel called Codify, and they put up things like that. And I'm like, it'd be great if there was one Tommy Edman, who's just he's like a little kid still. He's like a little league guy when you see him next to Otani. It'd be hilarious if there was just one image of him, like he just stung a ball, and it's just meant to please people. The affect I'm going for is enjoyment, is pleasure, it's delight, right? That's what I'm going
Yes.
for with that. And so the Shohei account jumps in, and I'm like, whatever. And I don't mind engaging a little bit, but at some point I go, either you're an asshole or you're a robot. Either way,
Yes.
I'm not really going to pay much attention to you, and I do pay too much attention. I do get drawn in. The affect works on me, right? And so if they uh, get me to respond like a lot of my friends who are negative A's fans, and because I'm a Bay Area guy, right? And they get mad and they're like, "We're so in the rubber," and I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think you can defend that. And
Right.
maybe John Fisher is the worst owner ever. Maybe he is, but you're going to have to work harder than just to say that nonsense because the Cardinals just said that about the DeWitts, and the
Yes.
Cubs fans are saying that right now about the Ricketts family. So like, yeah, that sounds like a bunch of fan be so then I'm dumb and I respond to that, and then it doesn't and whatever my goal is on X, and I don't care about being famous. I don't care about likes and clicks. But whatever it is, I ought to curate better how I respond and what I do. I write a lot of what I think are thoughtful pieces, but I spend a lot of time kind of barking at people, and I'm like, why do I do that? I don't enjoy it,
I do
and
the
and
same thing. I do
yeah,
the same thing, and then I like you. I ask myself, "What the hell am I doing?" And then I'll just back out
yeah,
and or
yeah,
delete what I've just written and just
yeah,
move on, because
yeah,
I'll have that internal monologue with myself that I'm like, these people are trying to piss me off, so I'm just
yeah,
gonna like, and it's working. I can feel
yeah.
myself getting
That's the
angry.
affect, right? The
Yes,
affect they're going for is engagement or negative engagement or rage bait, right? And so that's the affect by design. And then the effect is it worked.
right,
So like
right.
that really is a good example of affect over effect. So I'm going to put something up that's patently ridiculous, hoping that you'll whatever emotion it is that I want, it's going to be in a cone of emotions. That negativity, that combativeness, right? I'm looking for combativeness. Can I get that? I just put up a thing about Luisa Rise. Right before we were going on, I was like, "Oh shoot, I got to put this thing down to get to work." But I was typing, and I'm like, "This guy's good." And I know you all hate him. He's got no power and he's so slow. I'm like he's hitting the double plays at the same rate this year as Trey Turner. Trey
Yeah,
Turner's not slow. And Luis Ariz, is he as fast as Trey Turner? No, but Trey Turner's way on the other end of the spectrum, and they still
yeah.
have managed to hit into the same amount of ground ball. So if I was to race Luis Ariz, he'd seem fast to me. It's like we get so crazy
Absolutely.
about these things, right? And
Absolutely. And I'm one of those type of guys that even there's a few players on like we'll just take
yeah, go ahead.
2015
Oh,
Royals for
yeah,
example. Um, there was a couple Alcides Escobar.
right,
He had like a 200 batting average, but he was phenomenal at shortstop.
right,
Phenomenal. And so his job at shortstop overruled the fact that he was a mediocre hitter.
yeah,
And it was sometimes like I'd had arguments or not arguments, discussions, I guess, with other fans during that time when Escobar was with the Royals, and they'd say, "Oh, but he can't hit. He sucks at hitting." And then I'm like, "Well, not all the time. He's got a pretty decent batting average. 200 isn't, it's two out of every 10 balls he's hitting. That's what, your
right,
200 batting average means." And explaining to him like, "But have you seen him on shortstop?" And they're like, "Well, yeah." And I was like, "That's why they keep him in the lineup. It's not because he's
right.
a great batter. It's because he's a great shortstop." And
Yeah,
I loved watching him and Eric Hosmer play together. It was great. Eric Hosmer's first base, and he was one of the best first basemen that I saw in 2015. And then he moved on from the Royals, and his career went downhill,
yeah,
whatever. But
yeah.
we had a lot of fun watching him in 2015. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Just because a player is not great at one thing doesn't mean he's not good at another thing, and that doesn't
Right.
not mean that he's not the puzzle piece that the team needed.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that he doesn't have value. I'll use a Rise as example again. The other day I was talking with someone. He's a terrible defender. And I'm like, well, he's one of the top 20 first basemen in the league, and if that's not good enough for the Padres, they'll make a change. The Padres aren't dumb. They know
Right,
what they're doing. Guess what? The Giants aren't dumb. The Marlins aren't dumb. They look at this stuff. They actually want to be better. Like this assumption that everybody's incompetent and the fan knows what they're doing with a tenth a hundredth of the info? No,
right,
especially like when you say, "Hey, Derek Jeter is a good shortstop, probably the best shortstop ever," right? And that elicits a response. Okay, but I want that response. And then when they're like, "He's a terrible, he's worst defender, not just at shortstop of all time." Like, well. He's number six in double plays. So
Right.
somebody thought he was pretty good, and he bailed out. Tell me a pitcher that wants to give back any of those double plays. And by the way,
Yeah.
there's dudes that couldn't stay at shortstop. Mike Schmidt started out as a shortstop, didn't stay there. Jim Thome was a shortstop, didn't stay there. And better than
Right.
those guys at shortstop. And so we get these crazy beliefs, or like this Lucia Rice thing. They talked about hitting. And they said, of all the qualified hitters, I'm like, what? Now you've changed the population. Like, this is just stats. So let's just be honest about this. When you cut out everybody who doesn't qualify, that doesn't mean that Luis is like those guys exist. They're part
Yeah.
of the whole bell curve. And that means when you have to cut them out, you've changed the nature of the bell curve. So we're already on the excellence side of the curve because you played
Right.
enough to qualify. So let's be honest about where we're at here. And so Luis is a pretty good player. Is he the best player? No. Is he a perfect player? No. Is he Shohei Ohtani? No. But now those guys aren't available. And so when the Royals are trying to improve, can they improve at three positions? Not likely. It's really hard to improve
Right.
at three positions. And so we think that there's just this omnipotence problem with GMs. Like they don't know what we know. If only you got rid of Michael Conforto. Well, there's a reason why Michael Conforto is still playing for the Dodgers. Or there's a reason why nobody wanted Luis Robert at the trade deadline.
Right.
Because they look at the numbers and they go, he's going to have to prove it. We don't. I can find that production or comparable levels somewhere,
Right.
and we're talking about baseball in pretty great depth here, but this is how like society works too, where we want there to be this solution for crime. Like you have to go out, you have to bring in the National Guard, and maybe you do, right? And the boss gets to decide a lot of stuff. But in 6 months, when the National Guard is gone and the police are there, bad policies are still going to be bad policies.
Yes, you're
And
exactly
so,
right.
so what did we do here? Was this theater, or and that's when we have to slow down and go, is this impacting my whoever the president is? This really doesn't impact my life at all. Maybe
Exactly.
President Trump will have an impact, maybe because he's trying to do a lot of big things, and maybe over the next 20 years, all of our lives will be better. Or maybe it'll be worse. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not going to
Yeah.
worry about it.
Yeah, that's it's same here. I was explaining, well, I was having a conversation with a guy yesterday, and it was kind of the same thing. I was saying that, like national politics matter so little in your life that I
Yeah,
have no idea why people get so upset over it because like it matters so little.
yeah,
Um, when you like let's take for instance that National Guard thing.
yeah.
If you don't live in one of the big, like one of the large cities that they're talking about, you won't even notice unless you go
You won't.
visit those places.
Right.
And it's I tend to think it's more theater than anything else, like you said. But again, I don't know. I'm not an expert on these things, and I'm looking at this from an observer standpoint because it doesn't make two shits to me. Like it really does
Yeah,
not.
yeah,
In Kansas City, would we like to see National Guard running around Kansas City? Well, it kind of depends on what they're doing there, and how long that they're there for. We'll just say like the 30-day thing. Would we like to see National Guard in Kansas City for 30 days? Um, that's really hard to say because
yeah,
they're it kind of depends on, like I said, what they're doing. Because if they can't make arrests, they can patrol though. And if you have
yeah,
the National Guard patrolling where the police normally would patrol, and I'm sure that there's something that can be done that where they might be helpful. But otherwise, I just see it as kind of theater, like you said, and I don't know why people are so pissed off about it because these places that they're talking about sending them into, there are really bad places and
yeah.
at certain times, and but at the same time, National Guard cannot arrest anyone. They're not
Right.
walking door to door making you go into your house and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
Check this out about the guard. It is very, very hard to get over the legal barriers to put rounds, weapons, and guardsmen in the same body. It
Right.
is essentially, I'm not saying impossible, but it is so hard to do that if you see a guardsman with a magazine in their weapon, chances are no rounds in it because we
Right.
don't want the army, and it's constitutionally illegal, and that's one of the challenges. Like, how do
Yes.
we cut out a thing so that we can augment the police, right? And I don't know what kind of deployment this is, 'cause, and I have got National Guard friends who can tell me all about this. These are very smart people who do this for a living, and they'll
Oh
say,
yeah.
"Yeah, there's no rounds there. There's no rounds there," and no one's
Yeah.
trying to get around that. So, like, every summer, you'll see there they go. There goes the army. They're going to go invade somewhere. Like, no, it's just summer practice. They're just
Yeah.
driving. They're driving to somewhere. They're going to do maneuvers. But every year we see this thing. Do you see all that military gear in that train? Where are they going? What are they doing? They're going to the NTC. They're going to go do work. It's
Right.
like it's drill. But we get riled up about this, right? And so, yeah, if you have a desire to do something, dance, paint, write poetry, make music, whatever it is. It's an amazing time to do this because all of these things, even with very limited skill, you can do them really, really well. Now, you still got to go dance, but who doesn't love dancing? Do that instead of whatever the other thing that we just talked about is. Don't worry
Yeah.
about the stupid National Guard. Go down to that local small business and say, I'd love to get into ballroom dancing. Will you have me? They're going to be over the moon for you. They're
Yeah.
desperate for you to come in. They want to become your friend and they want you to have a great time because the thing that they love, you might love too. And if they
Right.
do their job, oh my God, you'll be a client. And this is where the consumerism part is great. Go out and spend money. I'll buy a hat at a stadium because I want that vendor who got access to the license to sell, hats at the most expensive. I want them to do well because that means the team
Yes.
does well. And so I
Yes.
throw the hat away as far as I can say. I will spend my money on things that I find valuable,
Yeah.
but I'm not gonna buy another set of Mickey ears, or another this or
Yeah.
another that, because that's just not my thing. But I am gonna go participate in my community and help the businesses with as much money as I can give them. We go to different restaurants. We don't go to all of them, but we try to move it around. Like, let's make sure we go to this place. Let's make sure we go to this
Right.
place. I try to tip well. I don't have a lot of money at all. Not at
Right.
all. But I try to not be stingy in my community. So I'll tip over 20% just because
Yes.
that's a person in my community and I want to take care of them. Even if they don't live in my town specific, I still want them to do well. And when they see me to be like, oh, that's Pete. He always gives me sometimes, and I swear
Right.
this is true. And again, I don't have a lot of money. So like that, I'm really digging in. I do this out of the goodness of my heart. But if I go to a bar and I buy me and my gal a couple of drinks, and the bill is $25, more than 10 times a year, I'll just $50. Bam,
Right.
and I'll double it, right? Because when I walk in, I want that person to like, I want them to be good. And when they see me, they're like, Pete, and of course they're happy because I've given them money. But then I'll say, hey, it's no big deal. I just want you to be all right. I want you to know that when you
Right.
see me, you're going to do a little better with this customer. Maybe I cover someone else's thing. I
Exactly.
can't always do
Exactly.
it, but I'd rather do that than worry about guardsmen.
Yes, exactly. I do the same thing at restaurants, by the way. Like it's for me, it's more like if I'm doing good, you're doing good kind of
Yeah,
thing.
right, right.
And I don't go out to eat if I can't afford to be there. If I can't afford to
Yeah,
like tip a great tip, and 20% is standard. And
yeah,
I don't know when that happened, but 20% is like standard. So
yeah.
for me, if I get great service, I'm definitely tipping more than 20%, but I won't even go if I don't have that above
Same.
20% to, and
Yeah,
I tell people all the time that like when my brother, for instance, and he's probably going to kick my ass for telling this story, but we went to a local restaurant and it was his family and my family when we were out to eat
yeah.
together. So it was a big table, multiple people, and it was a local Mexican restaurant. And we live in St. Joseph, Missouri, which is about an hour north of Kansas City, and the population's like 75,000 people. So at a restaurant, we're going to eat. The waitress, there's a high probability I'm gonna run into her again at some point.
Hmm.
And so my brother, after 12 of us ate at this table, he puts down a couple dollars for a tip. And I looked at him and I was like, you cheap ass, what are you doing? And he's like, well, like there's more of there's, not only are we eating, but you're leaving a tip, I'm leaving a tip. He left like $10 on the table. And I was like, dude, I said,
Yeah,
that's insulting for me. Like I'm embarrassed. So I
yeah,
doubled his tip and then I doubled my tip. And then like it wasn't even the service didn't even have to be that great. It was just like we
Right.
were inconveniencing the restaurant. We took up a lot of space that they could have had
Yep.
other checks. And
Yep.
instead of instead of like a 20% tip this lady was getting from multiple tables, she was kind of for me, it was kind of like she was being shorted. She did
Yeah.
all this work and trying to impress us and trying to keep us happy for an hour, and you're going to
Yeah.
leave her $10. And
I know.
so I left $40 on the table for my tip, and then I doubled his tip. So she made it out of there with like, I don't know, $60 in tips. And then
Yeah.
our check was less than $100. So
Yeah.
it was like it's one of those things that drives me nuts, is people that don't tip well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. And I want like these folks didn't think, oh, I'd like to become a waiter or a waitress. They're
right,
doing that job because they're trying to make ends meet.
right.
And so I'm not going to fix their problem, right? But if I was to, and my brother, he's passed on, but if we went out, he is a light tipper, and I'm like, hey man, give whatever tip you want, and then I'll fix it for you. And then he's like, you don't got to fix it for me. What are we going to give? Just ask, what are we going to give? And I'm going to say, why don't you do 20%? If I want to do more, I'll do more.
Right,
And then he's like, fine, and even if it's bad service, hey, you're having a bad day. You know what? Still going to get on top of this tip a little bit for you,
right, right,
and just try to look again. I'm not acting like I don't have a lot of money, but I
right.
don't waste a lot of money either.
I'm like
And now,
perpetually broke.
yeah, yeah.
That's what I say that all the time. I'm like perpetually broke. So our
Oh
household
my gosh.
income's less than $100,000
Right,
annually.
right.
So
Yeah, yeah,
I really don't have a lot of money, but I mean, I
right.
don't go
But
out
you
to eat a
find
whole lot
ways to be
either.
charitable within your community. Here's a person
Exactly.
working. I'll give a homeless person money, and I'll give this person money. Like, hey, yeah, I see you working. And there's so many things in life where I call them $1,200 problems. Like for a long time I couldn't register my truck. And then every
Yeah.
year I didn't register it, it became harder and harder and harder to do it. I just couldn't put my hands on $1,200. There was no way
Right.
to do it. I needed money in too many locations. I was drowning.
Yeah.
And so when I find people like that, I'm like, let me find you the solution to that problem. And here's
Yeah.
here's where we get bad at this if we're in need. Like, well, I don't need that help. Well, when they come tow your car and you can never get it back again, you're going to be in a worse spot. Well, that
Yes.
won't happen. Like, no, no, I've been there with my truck hooked up to the tow truck, and they were going to take it to the yard, and I was going to lose my truck and go bad on the loan and everything. And I
Yeah.
said to the cop, like, you're welcome to do this. We were in San Diego, my daughter, we were on Coronado, and I was doing a show. And I said, if you have to do it, you have to do it. But I've got my daughter. She's in from out of town. I don't have a way to get back. I'll be stranded here in San Diego. I want to pay my registration. I want to do the right thing. I
Yeah.
just don't quite have enough money. I'm a veteran. I'm struggling. I can't find a job anywhere. I'm smart. I know how to do things. And yet I've been bound up. And the lady's like, you know what? I never do this, but I'm going to take you off the truck and I'm going to send that thing home and I'll take the hit for you and just get this fixed as fast as you can.
Hell yes.
Think about that.
Yes.
And then now what debt do I owe? Well, let me tell you something. I owe that debt. And so when I tell that story to my friend who he won't let me pay his registration. All right. I'm
Right.
I'm going to have to compel him to let me pay his registration for him, right? But I'm going to because that lady did something for me. She did not have to do that. She saved
Absolutely.
my ass.
Hey
So many
man,
ways, right?
sometimes we just need a hand up, not a hand out.
Yeah, and I was good for the work. And so I'll never see, I don't even know her name or anything, but I want to make sure that I've paid that back because I got over that hump. I got fixed.
Yeah.
I had a lot of things wrong. I had so many trapdoors underneath me. I was like a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. I didn't know where the next problem was going to come from. And every time you fall through that, you just get more convinced that the world is against you, but the world doesn't have to be against you. And so
Right.
that's why
Right.
I take this approach of, look, my $20 isn't going to fix your thing, or my $60 on the $30 tab not going to fix your thing,
But it
but
might help.
it might help. It might help that day, and it might just be like, man, that guy's all right, and maybe that puts you in a slightly better mood. I don't know. It's not my job to know. My job
Yeah.
is just to like, how do I help these people? If a homeless guy's like, hey, I need some money. How about what can I do? Can I buy you some food? Yeah, man, I'll
Right.
take some food. They hardly ever say no. And if they say, nah, I don't like that, you want me to buy you some booze? And they're like, yeah,
Yes,
would you? And
I'm
I'm like,
that
yeah,
guy. I am that guy too.
I'll
I
buy you the
do the
booze.
same shit. Like
Yeah,
if they're on, especially if they're honest, they're like, Oh no, I just ate actually.
Mm.
I want to go buy some beer. And I'm oh
Yeah,
hell, well here you go. Here's 20
yeah,
bucks. Go get you some beer.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
I want to get a bottle. And so I'll give them some like
That's
it's
it.
they're going to make that choice anyway.
Right.
It
Well, and they need
regardless.
that to survive. If they're that kind of an
Right.
alcoholic, they look. I'm not a big reduction of harm guy, but that's reduction of harm.
Yeah.
And if they're like,
Yeah.
"Can you just buy me a pint of Smirnoff?" Sure. Do you want to go something better, something bigger? What do you want? What
Right.
do you need? And they're like, fuck, man. And it's 20 bucks. I'll go buy a fifth of
Yeah.
Smirnoff or whatever. That's fine. But if you want like the whole bottle, whatever, they're going to get it. So
Yes. Yes.
they're not going to have to rob somebody. They're still going to go get drunk. I am not their caseworker.
Yeah,
I'm not,
right.
right.
I'm not their
But,
dad,
but if that,
you know.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I do
So
I
it's a
do
true
the same
story.
thing.
And it's hilarious. And it's tragic at the same time. So you know who Andy Dick is, right?
Yes, I
Okay.
love Andy Dick.
So I was at the comedy store in LA, seeing one of my buddies who's a comedian, and Andy Dick was there, and it's crowded, it's bumping, it's fun, right? And he's like, "Hey, he's hammered. Will you buy me a drink? I'll suck your dick." It's all true. And I go, "I'll buy you a drink, but I'm not gonna. You're not gonna suck my dick. Sorry, man. And if you need another drink, you let me know." And he's like, "Good." And someone's like, "Hey, don't buy Andy Dick drinks. He's hammered." And I'm like, "That's not my problem."
Right,
He's been cut off by the joint, but they didn't kick him out.
right.
So, hey, yeah, I'm gonna give it to him. And he was so tore up. So he came back, he's like, "Hey, sailor, give me another drink." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll buy you another drink." It's hilarious to me. Look, I'm not gonna make Andy Dick an alcoholic. He already is one. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna fix him by not buying him a drink.
right,
And so I did buy it for him, and like and if the comedy store is worried about him drinking there, kick his ass out. And if
right,
they don't want to
right.
do it, they're going to enable him. Well, then, hey, I'm
What's
on the
the
enabling
difference?
train.
What's
What's
the
the
difference?
difference? Yeah.
Yes,
I,
I'm the
I
same
told
way,
my
man.
buddy about it, and he's like, that's hilarious. He's like, and Andy Dick was going to get his drinks there anyhow. So,
Right,
like, I just
right. If it wasn't
fixed the
going to be
problem.
you, it was going to be somebody else, and now you've got the
Absolutely.
story to tell.
I got the
Man,
story. Yeah.
I was hanging out at this bar one time and Andy Dick come over and he said, "Hey, buy me a drink." I was like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a hilarious story. And had
Yeah.
you not done that, number one, like you said, Andy Dick was going to get his drink either way,
He
whether it be
was.
from you or somebody else.
When he walked up
You,
on stage, he had a drink in his hand, not the drink that I bought him.
yeah, exactly,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
And dude, I just love Andy Dick so much, and I've watched him on reality TV shows. I've watched him when he was sober, when he was not sober. Andy
Right.
Dick is a character, and I think there's a lot of pain behind the funny,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
and I think that's
Yeah.
exactly why, you know, I think that's why he is the way he is. Like, he spends a lot of time alone as well, so
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
um it is a
And
great story. Of course, we know that Andy has his issues, right?
yeah.
But those aren't your issues to address.
Right.
He is a
Right.
grown man. He's capable of making his own decisions. And I'm an addict as well. I know how difficult it is to that willpower. Sometimes you just
Yeah.
don't have it, but it's still, I can't listen, if we were at a bar together, I can't blame you for buying me a drink because I was in that bar to begin with. I have to
Right.
take personal responsibility for myself. And I think that's missing in a lot of society is they're like, hey, don't do this, don't do that because this
Yeah.
person's an alcoholic. And then it's like, well, that's not my problem. They asked
Right.
me for the drink and I'm just the guy like, you know, I'm the guy that's going to buy the drink, and it's not my fault if, even if he chokes on the damn drink and dies, it's still not my fault.
Yeah.
We all have to have personal responsibility and accountability.
Yeah. And also maybe I saved some person from a conflict of having their dick sucked by Andy Dick.
Hey, there you go. There you go. And what a wild story that would be, right?
Yeah. Well, and the
I
guy,
mean,
so comedians are tore up. They're messed up, right? Not all of them,
yes,
but then that's the norm is they got this darkness in them, and that's part of the reason why they develop this mechanism of comedy. And so the person that I'm there with is an addict, and he's open about it. So
Right.
when I tell him the story, he's like, "Yeah, you know." And then, by the way, when Andy gets on stage, he's hammered. He's awful. He's terrible.
Yes.
And he was going to be that no matter what. He frankly isn't all that funny on stage anyhow to me. But
Right.
when I watched him, and I'm like, "Wow, he is really, really bad." It was hard to watch, right?
Yeah.
But you know, that was gonna, it's not the comedy store's fault. It's not my fault. It's Andy's
Right.
fault. And Andy's got a disease. And so he wants to go up there with stage 4 cancer and do his act with that. All
Yeah.
right. You know, I saw another old comedian and he was doing his act and it just not just past his prime, but past his useful date. But that's all right. Go up there and go,
Yeah.
you know, this is your gym. Go up there and go do it. And you have a good time. You got to let people be people sometimes.
Yeah,
And you
absolutely.
can't save everybody. And actually really can't save hard. You know the numbers on addicts. The fact that you can recover and that you stayed recovered, you're like 98% unlikely to happen.
Right.
And yet here
Right.
you are, right? It happens. We don't know when, and it's you. If you are able to fix it, then god dang, that's awesome. It's
Right.
awesome. But it's
Right.
not my job. You know, I can support you
Absolutely.
good ways and bad ways, you know.
Right. Well, I mean, that's like if you're dealing with an addict that like well, my sister is an addict as well, and she is a lot. So I'm actually addicted to cannabis, and
Mm,
I grow it, and I use it for medication. I self-medicate. Um, but my sister had a way of just I don't even know how to explain it. It's not like I just wasn't into enabling her behavior.
right.
Now, if it wasn't bothering me or my family, that's a different story. Like you can go
Sure.
out and be free outside of my home, but where I had an issue was, I told her like you can come over to my house for a warm meal, a place to sleep. If you need anything, call me. And that's how I would help her. Like I would offer her, look, I'm not going to give you money because I don't have any money. I'm not going to put my family out to house you. I'm not going to put my family out to help you. But I tell you what, if you can work within these boundaries here, like just my
Yeah.
first obligation is to my family here at home.
Right.
If as long as you don't mess with that ecosystem, like I will entertain anything that you want, but just don't mess with my ecosystem here at
Yeah.
home. And
Yeah.
a lot of folks see that as enabling, but I don't feel like I enabled her at all. And as a matter of fact, like my rules that like she couldn't get up and cook cookies at 2:30 in the morning,
Right.
because the whole house is sleeping, and she didn't like those things, so she didn't stick around.
Right.
And
Yeah.
like so that's I was not going to cave on my boundaries to
Sure.
make her comfortable, and that's I don't see that as enabling.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's got to be a balance where you're comfortable with what you, because if your sister is dead the next day, you don't want to
Right.
say, why didn't I let her make cookies at 2 in the morning? And if
Right.
you have boundaries that you're comfortable with, and we're using that example just because it's yours example, but my part of my brother's problem was he was more of an addict than I was. I'm just
Right.
not going to be addicted to alcohol. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
I've tried. It didn't work. You know,
Yeah.
and so I could describe my alcohol consumption and be like, Jesus, Pete, you drink a lot, right? But
Right.
but I didn't really. Like I had rules and within my own boundaries. Like I'm not going to get drunk 2 days, 2 days in a row. Certainly not three
Right.
days in a row. If I'm on vacation, I can break my rule because I could break it and then go right back to like, this kind of perforated abstinence.
Right.
And
And not
so I
only that,
just
you got a
always,
little bit of recover time as well.
yeah, 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 right. And so I'm not just going to get like I can drink by myself if I want to because I'm not an alcoholic.
Right.
So yeah, it's a bad thing to do if you are going to be an alcoholic, right? Eventually, but for me, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna watch this movie, I'm gonna have some wine by myself. Gosh, that's not bad. But for the wrong person, it's a bad
Yeah.
recipe. Well, my
Yeah.
brother was more inclined that way, and we struggled with boundaries, because
Yeah.
he would get drunk and just jam a bunch of stuff down my throat that didn't belong to me. And I was his brother, and so I would take enough of it. But then I would say, "Hey, man, when you called me last night, I called you last night. Like, yeah, you called me last night, and I don't mind you. You can always call me. You can always talk to me. But you know, if you're going to do it not drunk, it's better, you know. But I
Right.
know you're going to drink, so what am I going to do? Tell you not don't drink? You know that I'm
Right.
drink. He knows that he had a family to take care of, and it
Right.
didn't work out, you know. But that's not when he would call me and he was suicide. He died. He killed himself. So when he was going down that spiral, it took a
Sorry to
while,
hear that.
you know.
Sorry to hear that, Pete.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just the reality of like what these things look like.
Yeah.
Talk about this is because we get trapped in these worlds. Like, how did I end up? I had an addict girlfriend, and I'm not saying anything bad about her. I thought the world of her. I loved her, right? And I wanted to marry her,
Right.
but in this addiction thing that I, I didn't want to wake up 10 years down the line with more of that chaos in my
Yeah.
life. And so I was able to leave, but I'd done everything I could to that point. I fought for my relationship to get, and
Oh man. Pete dropped out.
I'm back.
Hey.
And when my brother would say, yeah, I was like, how are you? He'd be like, I'm terrible. Like, oh, what the hell am I even going to do for him here? Like we're going to hang up the phone. He's going to go right back to being terrible because he wasn't just that he was an addict. He had other issues that all just kind of
Right.
built up until he was no longer manageable. And and that part of the addiction part doesn't belong to me. And it's taken a
Right.
while for me when he was going down his final descent, and I'm going through my own therapy because I have my own suicidal ideation problem. I'm fine. I'm manageable right now today, but it's like recovery. I'm in recovery today. Check with me
Right.
tomorrow. So
Yes.
my head shrinker was like, "Hey, let's protect you because I don't
Right.
want this to be you." And so we worked hard to get me to a spot where I could withstand my brother's demise when it happened, and it
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
easy.
And you know, you I, and I'm very sorry to hear about your brother.
Me too.
I you know, I went through I had to mourn my sister's death while she was still alive.
Yeah.
She was hooked on the heavy drugs,
Mhm.
and it was bad. It was real bad. She was homeless, and she was skinny as a rail, and she just looked terrible. And so I went through this mourning process while she was still alive, and that was so difficult to it was so difficult to manage my feelings around her because I just wanted to grab her and shake her and wake up, wake up.
Yeah. Right.
And but also I could not I like so it's kind of like that libertarian streak in me, man. I
Mm.
have a fundamental problem with I have a fundamental problem with not allowing people to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's because like I wouldn't want people to do that to me,
Right.
and
Yeah.
let's just say I did have a drug problem. I wouldn't want my family coming at me and being like, you can't do this, you can't do
Yeah.
that. And
Right.
while I would appreciate the support and the love and everything, I don't think that I would see it as support or love. I would see it as hate.
Yeah.
And so it was a fine line that I had to walk with my sister. And thankfully she's still alive. She's still here, though
Whew.
she's still battling her issues. It's a
Yeah.
constant everyday battle for her. And I
Yeah.
sympathize with that. I sympathize with it and I empathize with that. But that does not mean she doesn't have a part to play in her sobriety.
Sure. Yeah. No, absolutely. And dealing with these things, understanding, like when my brother when he passed, because he and I had a chance to talk about this because it was a decent chance he was going to die. So we talked about it,
Right.
what he needed, what he wanted, what he hoped I would do for him, and all these kind of, we had these real conversations because, he was sick. And
Right.
when he did die, I was able to say to my nieces, like, I know it's hard to see today, but you have to understand, it's like your dad had stage 4 cancer and
Right.
we just couldn't save him. We did everything we knew how to do. Your dad was a champion. He was tough and he just ran out of life. And that happens. And it's unfortunate and it's sad. But you're also, and I was able to say to him, like, you love your dad and the dad that you loved, you're going to get that guy back in a little bit of time. You're going to
Right.
have to go through this process and it's not easy, but and it's going to be emotionally chaotic because that's what, grief is like. But you're going to find out that that guy that you loved, that raised you well, that cared for you, the good version of your dad is going to be back. And the one that you had to deal with the last couple of years, where it was eggshells and scary and everything else, that guy can't hurt you anymore. And this is
Right.
my brother, and I love my brother, right? But I'm able to be a guide for them. And we've
Yeah.
not even discussed that since then, but I'm positive because this is how this works, is that they get to remember the dad that they loved and have great memories of him. And that's
Yes.
that's the key is how do we manage? Because you're right, man, the family thing, it's hard. It's easier for me to deal with your addicted sister than it is for you because
Right.
you are related to her. You love her unconditionally until you don't. And until you find a condition, you're like, I don't love that. But
Yeah.
it's one of those, and you know this when you deal with addiction, it's the family members that get the tumors. We're the
Yes.
ones that get the cost of their chaos. Yes, I have another $1,000 for that. Yes, I'll find the money to get you through rehab because I'm desperate for you. Yes, I'll do
Yeah.
this. Yes, and then you run out of yeses, and and that's hard on everybody.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be an addict.
Right.
you know and if we could take a pill and be over it, we would. And I'm not an addict, but I know how this stuff works, and it's
Right.
it's tragic.
You're absolutely right, man. Um, this has been such a great conversation. We've been a little all over the place.
Yeah,
Shifting gears a little bit again.
please.
I'm a big UFO fan, and I,
Okay.
I love UFOs. And you have a history in the military, your former military,
Yeah.
and counter intel. Did you see anything while you were in the military?
No, no. Again, I'm a muddy boot collector, so my job was to be off the camp. And so, no, I got nothing for you. I'm so sorry. Yeah,
Oh,
I've been read on to special programs, but
right,
it's all stuff in my world. And so my that world and
right,
my world, they don't overlap at all. We're in the same
right.
org chart, but so no, I don't know anything, and I wouldn't even venture a guess as to do we have something, do we know something? It sure is fun to think about. It sure
It
is
is. It
compelling.
is.
But I'm with you in that I don't know, and I'm suspicious. Maybe I'm suspicious more than I am a believer. But if tomorrow we found out that there was stuff, I'd be like, oh, it's kind of. I think it's kind of like with the JFK files and the MLK files and the Epstein files.
Right,
We get so built up that when we get the answer, it's kind of like I'll say more accurately, it's like hard news. When you read a
right.
hard news story that's got no opinions in it, it's boring. You're like, oh, that's what happened.
Yes.
Oh, that's all that happened. Okay. All right.
Right.
Next story. Right. So it's like that. We're like, when we find out, we're like, oh. And will we believe
Yes.
it? If we found out for sure that there were no UFOs, would anybody believe it? I don't know.
That's a difficult one because I feel like they've been saying that for years that there's no UFOs.
Yeah.
But when the government came out, like in 2017, I wasn't even aware of it. There was an article in the New York Times in 2017 that was basically laying out this elaborate, like program that the United States government was running uh, for UFOs and UFO studies and everything. And in 2017, it's kind of like it broke open. And then in 2020, the Department of Defense came out and they were like, yes, there are UFOs. We don't know what the hell they are. They're not aliens, or at least we don't have any proof that they're aliens.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to me. The last time that the government came out and spoke about this openly was the 50s. And I mean, during the height of the Cold War, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's often what I think about is like, is this misinformation or is this counter intel or
Yeah.
is this,
Yeah.
it's like, do they want us to think that there's UFOs so we're not paying attention to all the stuff that they are doing in the
Sure.
skies? And
Right.
it's I'm a big fan of the UFO subject as a whole because it is very, very entertaining and
Yeah.
it's very it gets your mind muscles working, and gets you to think. And there's so many ties between religion and the UFO subject. It's very interesting to me. And I
Yeah.
just wanted to ask because I ask pretty much everybody that's in the military, hey, did you see
Yeah.
anything? You been
Yeah.
through, have you been just walking through a building and you see something strange over here, so you go check it out and it's floating or something, so I ask those
Yeah.
questions all the time,
Sure. Yeah.
not because I'm like one of those true believers or anything. I'm just
And
very
you're
intrigued by
curious.
the stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And just to put a little intrigue in there, if I did know something, I already wouldn't have told you about it, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Because that's just how it is. There's all kinds of stuff I just don't talk about, and you won't ever find out about it. I talk about all kinds of stuff, right? Because I can
Right.
talk about it. But the things I can't talk about, I don't. So if I
Right.
did know something about aliens and it was classified, I wouldn't tell you.
Yeah,
So
can't talk
like
about it.
there's that conundrum too, right? And I'll tell you right now, like this is just me being 100% honest. I don't know the first thing about aliens in the military. I really don't, right? But if you were talking to someone like me, they would say those exact words to you and be just as believable as I am. And
Right.
they would say, I don't know the first thing, and they would have seen it, right? And so
Right.
legitimately, I have no access, no knowledge, no nothing. And you can, and when I say this, it's like, well, is he lying now or not? Like it's just this spiral. But for sure, like Afghanistan, Iraq, these are not places that have UFOs in them, you know? So this is
Actually,
crazy. Well, while I was
so
there in the field, that's what I'm saying.
in Mosul,
Yeah, I was there.
there's actually footage of a UFO. They call them UAP now, but there's actually
Hmm.
footage of a UFO flying over Mosul. They call it the
Yeah,
Mosul Orb. When we
yeah,
hop off here, you can check it out on YouTube. It's a very
sure.
quick clip, but
I
it's a
legitimately was in, yeah, Mosul for a while. Out of Mosul, I was there. Yeah, and I was there when the Chow Hall blew up. So I know that
wow.
area. Yeah, yeah. But again, never saw an orb. Also, wasn't necessarily looking for an orb either. I know that Nineveh's around there, and there's some stuff with UFOs in Nineveh and everything. I don't know, man. I'm not that guy. And again, I probably know people that have worked in programs close to that, but they wouldn't tell me about it either. You know, like we
Right,
don't we
right,
don't talk behind like we don't if we're not allowed to talk about it for the vast majority, like almost every single buddy, we just don't discuss it. And here's another thing that's kind of funny is I've been read on to a bunch of different programs, right? And you read on, you're like, okay, I'm in this program, and I'm not going to talk about it. It's not that hard to keep that secret, but most of the stuff is classified. You read it like that's not classified. Everybody knows that. Like there was a thing, and I don't know if it's still classified or not, but I'm not going to identify it, so it won't matter. But I was deployed to a place that had a large aquifer, and that fact was classified. I'm like, what? Why would you classify that? And what
right,
makes you think that they don't already know? Do they have wells here? I wonder where that water comes from. You know, and they're like, well, you can't talk about it. And I'm like, I'm not talking about it. I'm just saying it's not classified to say that there's water in the ground. You
right,
know, like how much water you want to, oh, whatever. You know, fine. I'm not going to talk about it. I don't care. They have wells. We're digging them
right.
more wells.
I think the problem with overclassification has gotten a lot worse over the last
Oh my
few
gosh, it's so
years.
bad.
But I think the reason why it happens is because when people are typing up some of these reports and everything, they just don't know whether they should classify it or not. So they
Yeah,
they err
yeah,
on the side of caution and go ahead and classify. And then it's on
yeah.
somebody else to declassify.
That's
And then
true. And
it never does get declassified.
this is a big point. And so a lot of this is just default classification.
Yeah.
And that's what we call it, default classification. So I'm just going to make this classified or secret or whatever it is, right? And really the confidential like portion marking, the C, you never even see it because it's like a phony classification level. Like, okay, so it's confidential, but why isn't it just secret? Like it's just
Right.
kind of like a, you know, and so you hardly ever see C. And so I never even use C. Never once did I type the letter C in to classify it confidential. That's the lowest ranking, everybody. So it would just be S or S and portion markings behind it. And the S is secret and then TS and then TS and it's always slash something. TS
Right.
SCI or TS no, you know, blah, 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 all these other words behind it that kind of codes you and it like qualifies secret. So like this is secret but you can release it to the Five Eyes. You can, or no foreign, just like you'll see no foreign, like the word no porn. It'd be no
Right.
foreign, which means no foreign release,
Eyes.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's, yeah. And so you're trying to just like tell the person how classified this thing is within that document. And then again, you read it and you're like, well, that's just someone's name. Their name
Right.
isn't classified. Like their connection to this operation is classified, but not their name. You just classified. Now that person can't wear a name tape because you just classified their name,
Right.
you know?
And then they use that sources and methods
Yeah,
as kind of like a blanket term to be like, oh,
right.
we don't really know, so sources and methods, and
Here's
we're
the,
not
this,
going to ask
yeah,
anybody either.
yeah, right. Right. Sources, methods, intent, these things can be classified. And a lot of times it's temporary. So a lot of the stuff I did was classified in the time, but those units are gone. I'm gone. That commander's not a commander anymore.
Right.
And so all that classification just sort of evaporates. And I learned this by talking to the declassification person because it's really not up to me to declassify. So a lot of times people would say,
Right.
well, why don't, and not because I'm a counterintelligence agent, just because I'm working in a space that's using classified. Someone would say, well, just declassify it. And I'm like, no, they have a person for
Right.
that, and they're called the declassification agent. And so you go
Right.
talk to them, and you say, "Hey, I don't think this is classified. Will you tell me?" And then they go, "Yeah." Like, do I need a memo? They're like, "No." And so now you've declassified it, right? But you know who that person's name is, and you're like, you go talk to them. That's their job. That's
Yeah.
their job. That's what they do, and they
And then
live
they
in the
have
in the
whole
two shops.
departments for that too, like Dopser
Yeah, oh
and
yeah,
all
yeah,
that.
yeah. Right, right.
Yeah.
And so when people either classify or declassify something, don't ever check with the classifying authority, then they're sort of, like, I don't know, it's a pain in the ass to go see that person, but that person, that also is their job, and they've got other jobs, but that's one of their jobs, is to kind of referee that stuff for you. And so I'll say something like, hey, I want to give this out to these Canadian guys, is there anything in here that's classified? And they look at it like, nah, it's good, go ahead. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take all these portion markings off, and like, yeah, it's not classified, it's just unclassified, a U.
Right.
So you're like, okay, unclassified. So that's all possible. And I'm going through all this because I wanted to say this. We know what we're supposed to do. Like, we're briefed on it, we understand it. If you compromise a classified thing, you have to report it. If you don't, you've
Right.
broken the law. And not because you leaked classified, you broke the law because you didn't report yourself or you didn't report
Right.
somebody else. Hey, I saw somebody else put a thumb drive in that thing over there. If you don't report yourself, well, then you've committed a crime. And I'm being a little bit extreme with these things, but that's the law, right? That is the law.
Right.
And that means you're subject to 10 years, $10,000 because you didn't report yourself for that thing. No one goes to jail for this unless there's some kind of political hit job. But that's the
Right.
rules. And so when someone says, oh, there's classified in Joe Biden's Corvette, or there's classified on Hillary Clinton's server in her garage, or oh, there's classified in the bathroom at
Yeah, there's
Mar-a-Lago.
so many things that are classified. You don't even know. Like,
Yeah,
it could have been an inter-office memo that got
right.
accidentally taken home,
Sure. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it could cause all kinds of problems.
In every situation that I just mentioned, there is somebody who's, like, we'll call them an SSO because that's the title, but maybe they call them something
Right.
different now. But it's the security officer, and they are responsible for the classification of stuff. And when they aren't going to jail, there's a problem with our system because
Right.
that their job is to protect they're the ones that say, no, Secretary of State Clinton, you cannot bring your phone into the skiff. Well, I say I can.
Yeah.
You're
Sorry.
Do what you want to do. I'm going to tell you right now, you can't do it. And if you walk in, I'm going to walk over to the counterintelligence office and I'm going to report it,
Right.
And then if Special Agent Pete gets that report, I'm like, the Secretary of State just defied that. All right. I have to report that. I
Right.
have to now write a report. And if someone wants to say, we don't care, that's not my job. My job is I have now, and not only do I have to, there's rules like within this many days, this many, I have to immediately start a case. I
Right.
just opened a case on Hillary Clinton now, right? In this case, and it might get turned away. We don't care about that. We're not going to participate. That's just like a cop saying, "Hey, I arrested this person," and the DA goes, "We're not going to press charges. It's no big deal.
Right.
Let him go." You know, but we don't do that. We don't hold
It is
people
the
accountable.
same
So
thing. Yeah.
yeah, when Eric Swalwell has a Chinese spy being a honeypot, when Dianne Feinstein, and it's not political. I'm just naming some cases here.
Right.
When Dianne Feinstein has a Chinese agent that's a chief of staff for her California office, right? These things matter because the guys in my world, my peers who do that kind of stuff, who find a Fang Fang and get her into that place, they're playing as hard as I play. And I know how hard I play.
Right.
And when you want to compromise a city and the people within that city, within that political realm, won't hold themselves accountable, delicious. I'm going to make an
Yes.
entire career out of that. And so it's not Democrats. This is just that class of people that won't be held to account. And when
Right.
they make these mistakes, they're like, "What?" I saw Hillary Clinton say, "I accept responsibility for this classified stuff that was on."
And
Okay,
then
all
she
right.
took
Well,
no
that
responsibility.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So she accepted it, admitted it. People got get out of jail free cards from it, and there were, the fifth was, taken, and all these things, and nothing happened. I don't care that Hillary Clinton is or isn't in jail. That doesn't matter to me at
Right.
all.
That's not the
But what
point.
matters
That's not it's the
is that
point is that she ultimately she sacrificed the safety and security of everyone for her
yeah,
personal comfort. Like I guarantee you there was nothing malicious about it. It was just laziness on her part.
right. But
I wanted to
you
have
do
one
have
device instead of 20.
right. Yeah, yeah. I wanted to be able to do this instead of that. So you cannot top secret cannot escape a skiff, like it did for her, unless it's run by a courier, like someone like me who's got courier orders. Not, I don't have this anymore, but at one time I had top secret courier orders. So I am authorized to carry top secret out of a skiff. I have a card, I'm registered, I'm read on, I'm all these things to be able to do this, right? And it's pretty rare to have that. So and that card is so powerful that if I came up to you and you're a guard at the post and you're wearing a uniform, and I say, soldier, airman, sailor, whatever it is, right? I need your help. And they'll go, well, I'm not going to help you. My job is to go. I'm like, nope. I'm superseding. You are in, and it's like I'm a commander, right? And so I command you to help me. I can go in. I can go into not any American, but like any service member's place of work or whatever. And I'm like, you have to house me because I have top secret and
Yeah.
whatever, right? Like I'm empowered to do. That's how hard it is to get top secret out of a skiff. We enable some joker like me to say, "Excuse me, I need your help," and they're forced to give it, right?
Right.
And so when you don't defend that, when you don't do the investigation into, okay, we know that stuff was leaked, what happened? When you don't investigate that, that's all law. You have to do
Right.
that. And you have to in terms of if you abide the law. If you're gonna be like, we're not gonna worry about it, okay, fine, that's different. And commanders get to do that kind of thing. Presidents get to do that kind of thing. But when President Trump's like, well, I just declassified everything, he literally can go like this, right? And just say, no, it's declassified. That's his prerogative. But there's paperwork that has to follow it. And so that means
Right.
someone went out and
Right.
said, all of these, all right, well, let me get busy working. I got to catalog everything in here. There's an
Exactly. There
actual
is.
task.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we don't do these things. And so, okay, great. Don't classify anything then. If we're going to mess around, just let it all be out there in the open.
Yeah, that
But we
reminds me
don't.
of the diplomatic
Yeah.
pouch. You remember those
Oh, yeah.
diplomatic pouches they used to carry
Sure.
around? Like
Yeah.
I could not wrap my head around like you can put anything in there and nobody could
Anything.
bother you. And
Yeah.
when I first learned about the diplomatic pouch, it was like it was crazy to me that sort of thing existed. But when as I was reading about it, it was like, well, if we don't have these things, then we essentially don't have protection
Right.
when we're taking information from one place to another that's outside of our control.
Yeah, yeah. And you're saying a pouch, it's anything. They can kind of just wave their hand over it. This is diplomatic protection. And
No
so
kidding.
you can't look at, so when I was in Iraq and I had my top secret courier orders, we sometimes would smuggle booze onto the camp for a
Right.
lot of reasons, right? But I don't want I don't want to have to explain that I'm allowed to do that, right? Because that's harder. And so I came up to the checkpoint and they're like, "Hey, we're going to inspect your vehicle." I'm like, "No, not this one." And they're like, "What do you mean not this one?" And I'm like, I'm glad to deal with you, but you probably should get your sergeant of the guard. You're not inspecting this vehicle." And they'd be like, "What are you talking about?" And I'd show them like, "These are my top secret courier orders. You cannot inspect this vehicle." Right. So whether I'm breaking the law or not, they can't inspect it. And
Yeah.
so they go, "Oh." I'm like, "You're welcome to make this call and definitely get your boss if you want to. But here's what's going to happen. You're not inspecting this vehicle." And
Right.
so they're like, "Ah, shit, top secret. I've never even heard of that shit." And so they go get their boss and they'd be like, "Well, it says, I'm reading it. Yeah. Yep. All right."
You're good to go.
Off I'd go. Yeah. So these are real rules that have reasons for, have rules for a reason. And in this case, if I'm bringing booze onto the camp, I'm not going to, I'm using it for my job. And in my
Yeah.
job, I'm allowed to drink, right? So yes, the big rules are you can't drink. But in my world, if an Iraqi's like, "Hey, do you got some bourbon?" and I'll tell you some stuff.
Yeah,
Bourbon.
yeah, I do.
Of course, I have bourbon. When they offer me bourbon, I said I had General McChrystal, Stanley McChrystal on my show, and I told him like if I was sitting with you in a meeting during Ramadan, because I've done this with other commanders, and we started talking about Ramadan with the colonel or the general that we were talking to. If that guy offered me a shot, I'd drink it right in front of your face.
Right.
Not to not to put it in Stan's face, but because my job is different than Stan's. And my
Right.
job is to get that connection to build that trust, right? And so when we look at all of these things, there are rules, there's ways around the rules, but if we don't abide any of the classification rules, then I don't know what we're supposed to do, you know? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
sure, I can I don't know. It it uh it aggravates me, and then I try not to pay attention to it because they're acting like it doesn't matter, so I try to act like it doesn't matter too.
Right. Right. Man, that's, you know what? That's a good place to leave this conversation, I think, Pete.
All right,
Um,
man.
it's, man, this has been an awesome conversation. Uh, ma- you know, when we were talking about, when we were discussing about being on the podcast together, it was, we were like, geez, we're a great match. And I'm like, yes, we actually are. We've got so much in common. We've got like baseball, for instance. That's one
Yeah,
thing that's like very surprising. And I love when I have these type of podcasts where, man, it's been an hour and a half and it feels like 20 minutes. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
it's been a great conversation. And I tell you what, I'd like to have you back on if you don't mind. Like
Anytime. Yeah, let's go. Talk about whatever you
let's
want.
yeah, let's do it in a couple months, man. And like let's just say November-ish. I'll reach
Yeah,
back out to
let's
you
do it.
and we'll
Yeah.
do November-ish and we can get into all kinds of things, but I really want to dig into your podcast, man, because like
Hmm.
you've got a few guests on your podcast that I'm like, what? I've got to listen to
Yeah,
that. So it's like Mike Baker. I love Mike Baker.
sure. Mike's great.
I listen to the President's Daily Brief, which is his podcast every day,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
don't miss that one. So I love Mike Baker, and you have a few other guests that I'm like, I got to check that out. I got to check that out.
Oh my
So
gosh. Yeah.
after I check those out, I'd like to have you back on in like November and we'll discuss
Anytime.
those things. And that's awesome, man. And I'll tell you what,
Hmm.
hang out with me for just a minute and we'll let
You
all
got
these
it.
people go. Hey,
Bye, everybody.
tune in next time. Bye.